over and over time. Oh, gee, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do this. Hey, Charlie Hurt.
Hey there.
We had a little bit of a bilateral news conference
Yes,
with
we did.
President Trump
I could
and
only
President
understand half
Macron
of
of
it.
France.
Yeah.
You can
only
that's not
understand
true.
about
I mean, it was
half of it.
translated.
Yeah, but it was still very confusing.
He doesn't
They were
understand
about
that
to
French
take
accent.
questions as they wrapped up the TV version of us, and we pop up online here.
But I think that's when this is the sort of setting where Donald Trump does very well, where he is, people kind of expect him to be to do things outside of protocol. And so
No, really?
so he sort of brings this watchability, and then he delivers what I thought was a very nice speech. It was a very lofty speech. It was about history, which I love, and it was about the history of France and the history of human freedom, which is you can never hear too much of that. And then it's going to go to questions, and then he's going to get all these stupid questions about Russia, and he will end up looking like the adult in the room.
Yeah, you know what's odd about that, too? I mean, you hear Macron talk about the Paris Accord. You hear him talk about the things that he talked about, President Trump, on the campaign trail last year, and took so much heat for, our position in NATO and calling out the leaders to pay their fair share. I mean, these are some juicy topics that, as a journalist, I would want to jump right in, and the water's warm.
I hope they do. I mean, we obviously didn't get to the part where they were posing questions because we're here with you.
Online, yes. On
Indeed.
TV, they're still going.
But there are a lot of outstanding questions, particularly with fighting terror. And, this is something that we are obviously very deeply invested in how France fights terror, because the unfortunate atrocities that they've seen in that country, because they have been one of our more aggressive allies, and they have felt so much retribution, partially because they've got so many people living in the country who unfortunately are agitated terrorists. So I think there are a lot of people who, we have mutual interest, so we can figure out how we don't replicate some of that tragic horror here in this country.
And I don't think it's an overstatement to put what we've experienced for the past 15 years with terrorism in the larger lens of the French Revolution and the American Revolution.
That was interesting, right, from the president?
Yeah.
His opening statement.
And these are all the questions about freedom and how we preserve freedom, and how the religious freedom. All of these things that are were radical concepts when we came up with them, and there's some people who still aren't able to grasp them, and they're refusing to accept.
And there's a need right now more than ever to have clarity, real moral clarity about that ideology and what it purports for human freedom versus our very proud Western civilization history, if you will. I think it's about time somebody's very clear about that. I would also say, we talked earlier in the show about Trump getting away from all these problems in domestically and going overseas. I think this is an amazing moment for him. I mean, he is really good overseas. People thought he was this isolationist who was going to be a buffoon. He's good overseas.
And who would embarrass himself.
And his wife is awesome. She is the secret weapon. She is glamorizing America. She's revamping our image. She's making it a little tougher on political spouses to keep up. But
and she speaks so many languages.
Yeah, and she's like gets to the hospital. She
You
speaks
speak
French.
a lot of languages too, Miss Rachel.
Well, Spanish, a little bit of Portuguese, but I can't speak French. But I will say this: she is not only revamping our image. I mean, she is in the fashion capital of the world, and she is outdoing the French.
And remember,
I would say, having been there, people have asked me what happened to my foot. I tripped at our flat that we rented in Paris just 10 days ago. I would say that for the first time, and I've been to France many times, been to Paris multiple times without my kids and working, there is such an embrace now of, I just felt a difference of this idea that we are in it together. We went to visit the Eiffel Tower, and you remember right after 9/11, you couldn't go up into the crown of Statue of Liberty, and it was obvious that there were forces on the ground that were protecting us, still are, but much more so then. And you see the guys in the camo carrying the big guns outside, and you know that we are all going through some of the same things. And I felt, connected. I think the president put it so well today. He said that there is an unbreakable bond that we have with the French. He says no matter what our differences, what unites us is our destiny and our love of liberty. I mean, I felt that more than ever. Maybe it's because I had my kids and I was looking for teachable moments. I don't know.
But you also know the feeling, and whether or not you're protective of your kids, if you're in a country where Americans are not welcome. And if you've been to countries like that, it's really uncomfortable, and you spend so much time playing defense. But it's really nice to be in a place where, you know, there is something shared, and you do feel like there is an embrace.
You felt that? Did you feel like
but
with
our
that
friends
with the
are in trouble because they've made some decisions, and you know, we talk about this. We talk about just next door because we went through Belgium too. We tried to hit as much as we could, and so the segregation that you see with Muslims in that country and how many of people that they've let in from areas where vetting is difficult. You know, we're having that conversation here. And those are hard conversations to have. But they're in trouble to a certain degree because they're starting to see some of that segregation and that lack of assimilation among certain groups. We saw some of it up in Minneapolis. You're in Wisconsin. You know what I'm talking about with the young teenagers in early 20s being kind of attracted to the Islamic State and not necessarily the religious bent or whatever they're doing to morph whatever they're doing there with that, but just this idea of, can I belong to something bigger, unfortunately.
And the lack of, assimilation has become a bad word. If you have kids in grade school, they no longer use the term the melting pot. They call it the salad bowl. Well, I want the melting pot back. You know,
what is the salad bowl? By
I don't know what the hell it means.
It means because you're mixing people together.
But when you put the dressing on, it all gets married together.
It's not okay. But I would take fondue over salad any day of the week because fondue is more delicious. It is a bad word, but it's also, you know, it's not. We have to be honest about what has happened in Europe and why it's happened that way, and how to keep that from happening in this country. And I'm sorry, but sometimes you have to have straightforward discussions that always preserve civil liberties, always, bottom line. But, you know, we have to look at things practically as they are.
Yeah, I always like it when we watch these videos too, or we watch these, you know, meetings overseas, and it's supposed to be that the other country hates President Trump, and it's supposed to be that he's going to trip over his shoes on the way in.
Well, you see, that's not the case.
And he's supposed, and the other leader is supposed to reject and snub him, and then they can't resist him in person because if you have met him in person, you know that he does a really good job of being charming, and even if you showed up and you were determined to hate him, it doesn't really work out for you that well. And, you know, we see that happening, and you see him, like, you know, ease the French president into his car, and the car pulled over, and they kind of can't resist. And I love those moments because the other side, his opposition, is so determined for him to fall over his shoes flat onto his face.
And so flat-footed when they try and tear these things apart.
Unpatriotic. I mean, in the end, you're an American. Why do you want the French to hate your president? Right?
Or why
do you want your president to fail?
All right, I want to go to Facebook Live right now and thank everybody for joining us there, and also on our Outnumbered page on foxnews.com. A couple things. Diana Stone says Charlie Hurt rocks.
That's true.
That's actually factual.
I second that.
That's not fake news. Shaida Benson, I think that's how you say your name. You guys are awesome. Make America great again, she says. Aloha from Maui, Sid Yeager. I like to kind of get where people are, especially on Facebook Live. Lucia Vickers, hey Charlie and ladies from Pennsylvania, just kind of getting out there. And now to get into the issues.
What's up, Keystone State?
Yeah, what's
and Maui,
up?
by the way, love hearing love from Maui because it's very early in the morning there. It's 7 a.m.
That's true.
Nice. And it's one of my favorite places.
Can I say something about assimilation?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, one of the advantages that America has about assimilation, you know, assimilating in a place like France or Britain or some place like this that is a country based on a location and a culture and a people and everything, that's one thing, and it could be very difficult. But in the United States of America, assimilation means you agree in that your first liberty is religious liberty, and you believe in the Constitution, and you believe in personal responsibility and freedom. And the fact that that is our culture, it's a culture built around a creed and beliefs. The idea that someone can't assimilate to that is no excuse. Wow. And in this country, we should be doing a better job of making sure that when people come to this country that they agree with those things, because if they don't, we don't want.
You know what's really interesting though in this country, which hasn't happened with other groups, but these young jihadists, it's not like, you know, because oftentimes you see how terrorism sort of proliferates in places where there's extreme poverty, and here you have young people who were born in this country who have all the access to technology and still turn out like that.
We're getting the rap music. Charlie Hurt, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So fun.
Rachel,
Great
to
to
see you.
Thank you, Charles
I know you're
DeHurt.
going to be cooking on Fox and Friends on Monday. How many of the 8 children will you have with you?
6 of the 8.
Oh, wow.
Small group.
That's
She
great.
is my spirit mom. We'll see you tomorrow.